I'm gonna come.
Hello, everyone. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican pistolero, coming to you live from the wonderful, beautiful country of the United States of America. Let's go, everybody. This is a celebration for the ages. We have done it. The last few years have finally culminated, and we are back.
I'm gonna come.
Let's go. All right. I had to take yesterday and election day off because honestly, there was no way that I was way too excited to watch what was going on Tuesday night to stream it on my own. I had like 4 screens going on at once with all these different channels. And then I was on the phone with somebody telling me about what CNN was doing because I just couldn't watch them myself. So I had like Fox News, Louder with Crowder, Tim Pool, The Blaze going on. And of all of them, I will say this, last week I had discussed a little bit that I felt like if Trump got the trifecta, so if he swept the table, got everything, that was going to be the path that we really needed to go forward to get things done, to end a lot of controversy, and to really push through with a lot of strength to the point where the Democrat Party, the Uniparty, the deep state, everybody that's been against us for these last few years was going to have to go on the defensive and really think about what they were doing. The court cases were going to have to be, thrown on the back burner. A lot of the resistance was going to get quashed. Not that still is not going to happen, but I really thought that was the only way that things were going to work out. And thankfully, I will say that Monday I was feeling pretty good. I'd prayed a lot. I dropped a few posts on Twitter where I was, basically praying for the mercy of the Lord on this country, because we'd really gone down a dark path with everything that the intelligence state and the left and the media had done to us these last 4 years. Everything from child sacrifices to, the entire trans madness, to the way that the entertainment industry has been moving, the woke DEI BS, the authoritarianism, the attacks on the First and Second Amendment, watching the West itself fall into shambles in Europe and in Great Britain, all the endless wars that were coming up, and the perpetuation of narratives going against everything that we believed in, and the slandering of President Trump. And and I really thought this is a pivotal moment for the United States, because even though we know that a lot of this was taken from us, there was still some responsibility, right? Because it really felt like so many of our countrymen and women were perpetuating this movement on the left and allowing that evil and that authoritarianism to permeate throughout this country. So I really thought, this is it. This is a judgment on the American people, a judgment on this country, and this is going to be our last shot to get out of it. Because we knew that if Kamala Harris had been allowed to become president of the United States, that was it. They were going to do mass amnesty. We saw the immigration numbers of how many illegals they were dropping into each of the battleground states. And at that moment, if they gave them amnesty and a pathway to citizenship, if they changed laws on the federal level, if they ended up getting the trifecta themselves with, the House, the Senate, and the presidency, that we were pretty much locked in. And a lot of my other fears with, even Elon Musk and the technology, what he's done for X, possibly losing that platform, losing some of his corporations, which have extremely powerful assets. The last thing that we would want is to have left-wing authoritarians with Neuralink and, death robots and, starships and all this stuff. That would have been a disaster for the human race in general. And so hopefully Elon is benevolent when it comes to all those things. I think he is. He's proven himself to be one of the good guys so far. And I think he's going to go down as one of the unsung heroes. But let me not get ahead of myself. So, I did a lot of praying on Monday. And when I woke up on Tuesday, I was actually extremely calm. I'm not going to lie. I know that, my family was getting a little bit nervous. My parents were pretty nervous about it. But the mod extraordinaire, I'd spoken to her. I'd spoken to a couple of other people. And, there was a sense of calmness going into it that I really could not explain. And it really felt like, he's going to get this today. He's going to get it today. And the only way that he can get it is if he wins big. And I think one of the surprise narratives for me was that despite the editorial page, when you dug deeper, the New York Times was pretty much calling this straight if you dug into a lot of their articles, because there were two key points, one during the night and one before, that really struck with me. So we know that the weekend before, if you'd been paying attention, there was that Ann Seltzer poll that popped out of Iowa, which was an absurd poll. It was clearly a PSYOP poll where it had Trump losing down by 3 points in Iowa, which was, patently ridiculous. Now, her track record for the Des Moines Register has been fairly solid for the last 10 years. So I know that drew some skepticism for people because they were thinking to themselves, why would somebody who's been such an accurate pollster with a decent reputation attempt to throw everything on the line? And it really just came down to these people would have stopped at nothing to try to turn this narrative and to flip this election. And they knew that with the infrastructure that was in place, with Elon Musk and Turning Point USA running point on the ground, Scott Presler did a fantastic job in the door-knocking campaign and registering voters in Pennsylvania, especially in those key counties like Butler, which flipped for Republican for the first time in history, I believe. You knew that there was already something different in the air. I think having X as a platform and allowing independent media to become empowered was a huge turning point for us, and it really allowed us to spread the truth and to monitor the situation. So we knew that they wouldn't be able to pull the same shenanigans in quite the same way that they had before. But despite all that, the level of desperation that they had, what they had already done with performing the coup against Joe Biden and not running a primary, force-feeding Kamala, demonizing not just Trump, but Trump supporters, which I personally think that was their ultimate downfall, but we'll go into the postmortem and everything that happened up to the election. I think that it started feeling pretty good. Now, the key point from the New York Times that I had read the day before that gave me some confidence, and it was kind of intertwined with Ann Seltzer's poll being a complete aberration and unbelievable, because that would have required something like I believe, a 15-point swing in Iowa, a state that's been deeply conservative for like 2 decades at least, where I think Barack Obama may have won it. So, more than 10 years. So, and, being a heartland state, it just seemed inconceivable that Donald Trump could lose that state. And so the New York Times had an article essentially, and I think they were bracing people for this, because for every piece of BS propaganda that the New York Times throws out, they always embed a kernel of truth in there. And I think the editorial board gets all the glamour there and kind of rules the roost. But it seems like there's 1 or 2 journalists that are legit still there that are trying to do real work. And I think this was a kernel of truth that popped out. And for me, it kind of changed my entire opinion. And they said that in polling, on average, they had determined that Trump supporters were 16% less likely to answer polls than Democrat voters. So what that told me was, in a race where pretty much every metric was within the margin of error. So you saw Trump leading some of the battleground states early on when we were starting to get optimistic by 1 to 3 points. The margin of error is typically 4%, so it could have swung either way. When you're saying that Republicans are essentially being undersampled by 16%, that is a massive red flag. So in theory, that says that Trump could be winning by like 10%. Now, it didn't end up being that huge of a margin of victory. However, that basically told the story right there that the polls were entirely skewed to the advantage of President Trump. And this article went further to say, I wish I had it pulled up, but I saw it in passing, had also said that they really think that they really thought that this was going to be a 2016 situation for Trump. So it was very bizarre to see that. And it kind of told me this is probably going to go for Trump. The betting markets have been going crazy. It seems like they tried to dump a lot of money on Poly Market, the day before to completely flip what the markets were, but they started normalizing again and moving in Trump's direction. So those were the signs right there. You knew it was an obvious poll. And the other thing that you needed to recognize with the Iowa poll, had the Iowa poll been true, there is no doubt that you would have at least seen Kamala sending probably Tim Walz, even if she didn't want to go herself, because Pennsylvania was the key, the linchpin, even though Trump ended up winning in a landslide, so it didn't really matter. But everybody had seen Pennsylvania as critical, but she didn't even send any surrogates to do any sort of last-second rally to try to steal Iowa, which would have been, pretty demoralizing. Let's be honest. If we'd seen Iowa flip early on in the night, that would have caused panic, and you may have seen some demoralization in states that closed a little bit later, like Michigan or Wisconsin, and possibly those turning for Kamala. So we didn't see her go. We didn't see anyone from the Trump campaign go, so they clearly knew it was BS because they have better information than we do with internal polling and things like that. You got that New York Times article pretty much admitting that they thought polling was totally skewed and unreliable. And I went into Election Day thinking, I think he's going to get it. Now, I was actually a little bit, the numbers turned out to be kind of what I thought. I believe he's got 312 electoral votes now at this point with Arizona and Nevada. Finally, I know they're still counting votes in Arizona, and it looks like Kerry Lake is still going through some shenanigans there. Kerry Lake has just always underperformed, unfortunately, but it just makes you wonder, is Kerry Lake actually an underperformer, or is Arizona just total bullshit? I think at this point, it's pretty clear that Arizona is a mess, and something has to be done about the election system there, because it's completely unacceptable that a state which really, by all accounts, has a fairly small population, but it's not like it's a poor state or anything like that, where it's a total, they have an excuse. Arizona should have their crap together. So it's unacceptable that they are having this many issues. It points to impropriety. It really does. So we'll see what happens there. It seems like with every drop that occurs, Kerry Lake seems to get, 60 to 80% the votes in each drop, but it's clear that they're trying to finagle stuff there so that she doesn't get that and we don't end up with, 54 Senate seats there, or I guess it would be 54 at this point because we just got the seat in Pennsylvania with McCormick. So I felt pretty good. I really thought that was what was going to happen. And so in some ways, I wish I'd been on the stream because I wish I could have emphasized this. I really thought that he would get New Jersey, or it was going to be really, really close. In New Jersey, he ended up performing fairly well, and in New Hampshire. And, these New England states are really bizarre. If you're from New England, maybe you can explain this to me, but it seems really illogical to me unless I don't know the local dynamics. But I feel, especially in a presidential election year and an off year, I could see where this might be the case, how you can vote for a Republican governor, but you couldn't vote for Donald Trump. Now, maybe it's just they couldn't swallow voting for Trump there, but it's bizarre to see that kind of stuff. And then to see Bernie Sanders get reelected and then you put a Republican governor, it's all whacked out in these New England states. They don't make any sense to me the way that works. So somebody's going to have to do that. I think here in the South and in the Southwest, we just go straight line ticket most of the time, just because we know you can't have an effective president if they don't control both chambers of Congress. So kind of bizarre, but yeah, I thought New Jersey we might have a shot. Virginia looked like it was going to be close, and I really thought to myself, if one of those three goes early, then this is it. It's a lock. He's going to run away with it. So they didn't go, but you saw a lot of the numbers, especially in specific counties that were trending in Trump's direction. And then I think the only moment where I felt a little bit nervous was when it looked like we were close to getting Pennsylvania. Michigan was going in Trump's direction. Wisconsin was going in Trump's direction, which for those of you that don't know, historically, those Rust Belt states, since 1988, they all go together. I don't know why. I guess Wisconsin and Michigan make a little bit of sense because they're actually, geographically close to one another. But that's just how the chain goes. Those three have just gone together since 88, and they ended up doing the same thing this year. So pretty bizarre trend line there. We'll have to figure out why. I don't know. Is there something in the water? Are there factories from the same company there? I don't know what it is. There's some psychological telepathic link that goes through Illinois somehow and acts as a conduit off of the Sears Tower, and it just beams that, and then everybody there just votes the same. I don't know. It's some crazy magic that goes on there that they all say the same. They got underground tunnels, and they're really one state, and we don't know about it. So bizarre stuff. But when it looked like Michigan and Pennsylvania started stalling out, it was after midnight, and we're like, oh, here we go. This is it. This is when we're going to get that straight up line there. And then Wisconsin, of all states, just kept going, and they kept widening the gap. And I think I kind of believe that they were going to try something in Pennsylvania and Michigan, but because they already knew that they were going to lose Wisconsin and they were fairly certain of it, it wasn't going to matter anyway at that point, because you saw North Carolina finally go, and Georgia got called way too late. John Prosper, thank you for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you. That's when I kind of saw it. And yeah, I do. I have to do the coffee pour. I haven't even done that yet. I just started right into it because I'm hyped up. I am hyped up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do the live pour. For those of you that may not have watched before, this is traditionally how we start the show. With the fresh brewed coffee right here. Straight from the percolator. We're percolating tonight, that's for sure. All right, we got the coffee. We're ready to go. Let's put the lid on. Let's put a lid on it, just like we put a lid on Kamala. And I think I got to take some of this brew because we got to stay engaged here. Let's give you something funny to watch. Aren't we glad that this is something that we won't have to deal with for the next 4 years?
Oh no!
This would have been awful.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
You exist in the country. It isn't you're on television. Mike, look at her.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness that we don't have to deal with this for 4 more years. Thank goodness. She's gone, ladies and gentlemen. She is gone. She's irrelevant. We threw her out of here, and it's over. And, you know, I think one of the things that was great. I never thought I would be happy to see Joe Biden before walk up to a podium and give a speech until today. And you could see that the next few weeks are going to be, we're going to find out so much about what happened within the Democrat Party. And it's going to be, the tea is going to be delicious. Let's be honest. It's going to be the best tea that you've ever had. It's going to be fantastic. We're all going to love it. It's going to be delicious. And I can't wait to find out how much hatred there was between the Biden and Kamala Harris camps and Nancy Pelosi and all of this, because I got to tell you, Joe Biden had a spring in his step today. He was walking out with the aviators. He looked bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It didn't even look like they had to drug him. The man looked like he'd been rejuvenated. He had a revival going on within him. He walked out there with a smile on his face, and he's like, "Hey, man, it is what it is, right? Peaceful transfer of power. I gave Trump a call. It's all good. I spoke with Kamala. She's got a backbone like a ramrod." And he was like, "Peace out. We did a great job, everybody." And I was just like, what the hell just happened? I was like, what the hell just happened here? But it was fantastic. The dude was ecstatic. So he just finally like, F this crap. I am out. I'm out. That's it. I'm done. They tried to screw me over. We're done here. Like I got nothing left. I don't care about these people. And we are done. We're absolutely done. So I really think that is amazing. So, you know, that was the only time that I've been happy to see Joe Biden. And you know what? I was happy for him, because now Joe Biden's going to ride off into the sunset and we don't have to worry about him anymore. I think at this point, he won't even remember on January 21st that he was president. And Jill, he and Jill can just go chill in Delaware. He can have ice cream cones and he can just sunset in peace. He'll give Hunter Biden a pardon, most likely, which it is what it is. But, oh, Greg the Goblin coming through with the $20 super chat. Thank the Lord for saving Trump so he could rescue us once again. Hillary and Kamala. And now Kamala, let's go. You know, Trump has a track record of beating women, apparently, so that's the way it is. So oh, man. Yeah, I know. It's terrible. It's terrible. Thank you, Greg. Much appreciated. And really, I mean, that kind of goes to what I said, right? That they're what I said earlier. I do think that America was given a reprieve, and there was something in the spirit that was going on. You guys know I'm Christian. I'm devout, so I do believe that there's there's a layer of spiritual warfare that goes on with a lot of current events, but that's not the type of show here. Maybe one day we'll talk about things like that, and we'll do a different show where we talk a little bit more about scripture and things of that manner. But, you know, I do feel, you know, Trump, there was divine intervention. He's been through a lot of trials. And I think this was something that Luke Rudkowski had brought up, but I'd been discussing it with the old man here and the mod extraordinaire. And, you know, hindsight is 2020. The last 4 years have been awful. You know, we've been seeing, obviously, the persecution of the J6 prisoners. We saw what happened in after COVID with the jab and being, you know, people losing jobs, people being ostracized, people being, you know, becoming social pariahs, losing their businesses throughout all of that, reputations being destroyed, demonetization on YouTube, and, you know, President Trump being banned off social media platforms for years. And so there were a lot of people that lost their livelihoods, whose reputations were destroyed, who lost money and were ridiculed at every turn. Families were destroyed because of some of these issues. And, so it was terrible to go through the Biden administration. However, I think with hindsight being 2020, we would not have been able to see, well, we were all, many of us here, you in the audience and myself, obviously we've been fighting this fight since Trump became president in 2016, the first time around, where we started seeing the authoritarian left creep into everything, taking over the entertainment industry with wokeness and DEI. President Barack Obama coming in 2008 and really taking us from a post-racial America to now racism is everything and it permeates everything. And if you're, if you're white, you're automatically racist and you're irredeemable. And everybody else is totally, that's it. We'll just give reparations and all these things, pushing that divide within the country, destroying the relationship between men and women, trying to destroy families, and having propaganda at every turn with Hollywood and the mainstream media. So we've been really suffering through this for almost 16 years now, with Trump being a reprieve there, but him realistically only having 2 years of his first administration where he wasn't completely on the defensive. So now, after going through all of that, yes, we did lose 2020, but it is now obvious that the American people at large had to go through the pain that we went through for the last 4 years in order to go from woke to being awakened. And that's where we are now. We've all finally been awakened. There's still a lot of people that are crazy out there that are going through the shock of the propaganda, the woke mind virus, everything else you want to call it. Kathy Bennett with the 20. MAGA, thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate it. Look at that. You guys are on a roll today. We're also live on Rumble and X. So go ahead and check out those alternate media platforms. Look at that. Mr. Z dropping the $5 super chat. Look, you guys are making it rain today. What are my thoughts of those in government saying they won't cooperate? I think they underestimate Trump's ability to get what he wants. Let's drop some likes on all these super chats. I appreciate all of you. We've got to show the love here. You guys are amazing. I think I will get into that, Mr. Mr. Zeeb. I got my tiny monitor here. So I appreciate that again. I think this kind of goes to the point that I'm trying to make here, which is we went through 2020 and we know that one of Trump's biggest weaknesses, which is what really he admits as his weakness, was if you watch the Joe Rogan interview, which was another pivotal point here, and we'll go through kind of what's happened the last 4 years, which is what I'm doing now. We'll go through the campaign, and then we will, we'll watch some left-wing meltdowns, and then we'll kind of go through what I think some of my predictions will be with cabinet positions, possible scenarios that may occur, what's going to happen with the Republican Party, and what may happen with the Democrat Party and the world at large going forward. So we've got a lot to talk about here. But I think Trump still had a lot of swamp monsters. He said that he didn't do that great a job with choosing personnel the first time around, and it's because he was never a politician. So he didn't understand Washington. He's a New York businessman. If you get him about construction and running a business, he's going to know who to go to. He's going to know what to do, and he would understand how to delegate things in that regard. But going into the presidency and going into the belly of the beast in Washington, D.C., with its dozens of three-letter departments, sub-departments, bureaucrats, and, political intrigue, he was coming in without really I think he underestimated a lot. I think Trump, despite what the left has called him, and even despite sometimes what we think on the right, or at least what we've thought for a long time, the left always said he was going to be an authoritarian dictator, which is preposterous. I think on the right, sometimes I think some of you may agree with this, that we wanted him to be even more even more tough on his adversaries than he necessarily was in 2016. You know, it's interesting when they talk about the peaceful transfer of power. They always point to 2020 and what happened on January 6th as a dark mark on his legacy. But if we're being honest, 2016 was not a peaceful transition of power either. You know, I'd heard I forgot who'd mentioned this, but they pointed out we had Hillary Clinton with a laptop, with a server hidden with, thousands upon thousands of documents on it that she was able to erase. And the Obama administration, despite Jim Comey coming out and, basically scolding her and being like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. That's not good. And that was, kind of the October surprise that did help Trump win to a certain extent in 2016. Trump didn't go for the jugular and he didn't, prosecute her. He decided to play it peaceful. But they brought the Steele dossier, accusing him of doing crazy stuff in Russia and having Russian collusion that led to the first impeachment. They brought, the Ukraine, the perfectly fine phone call. COVID was on his watch, and Steve Deace of The Blaze actually made a great point about COVID, and it's something that I had never heard anybody else say, that the rise of COVID really seems to have coincided with the peak of some of the Hong Kong protests, which we know Hong Kong was lost at around that time, fully to the Chinese Communist Party, and Trump's tariffs against China really having a huge effect on the trade war there in our favor. So he was like, COVID could have just been a biological weapon that was meant to cripple the West and punish the United States, which to a huge extent it did. So because we know the Chinese don't really care about their own people, so they lock them down. They'll throw away the key. If thousands upon thousands of them die, it's no big deal. That's how an authoritarian regime that's completely atheistic is going to behave, right? They have no value for human life in China. So that I thought that was a great point there, and it's not something that I really ever heard anyone articulate before. So, Trump goes through all of this. That wasn't a peaceful transition of power. That was a political war from the moment that he got in. And he decided to try to play it nice, to show some, statesmanship, really, if we're being honest. And he paid the price for it. And it was because he was naive and inexperienced when it came to that. So he still had a lot of these swamp monsters and backstabbing people within his administration going into 2020. So if he had won, he may not have done as great of a job as we could have hoped. And he definitely would not have been able to create the coalition that he did now, because everything that happened in the last 4 years woke the, opened the eyes of the Tulsi Gabbards, the RFKs, the Elon Musks, the Joe Rogans, and millions of other Americans that crossed the aisle and joined Trump's MAGA coalition for 2024. So despite the sacrifices that were made there, if you think of it as we went through essentially a cold civil war for the last few years, and this was a battle, and we didn't lose. We were able to regroup. We never surrendered, and we came back with even stronger allies than before. And now, because so many millions of Americans have seen the evils of the far left, the insanity of the far left, and the Uniparty, because now we've seen the likes of the neocons, the Cheneys, and a lot of other treacherous Republicans join forces with the Democrats. Now we know where everyone stands. And even people that we didn't really know were completely against us have been exposed. The media has been exposed for everybody. We've known about them for decades. But now it is all open for everyone to see. And that really is the best thing that has happened, because now we really get to push a movement that has the staying power to continue on in the future. And instead of having a weak vice president like Mike Pence, who would have been an old man, an old school GOP, Con Inc. kind of guy, possibly being the candidate this time around to try to continue the MAGA legacy. We instead have J.D. Vance, who really has proven himself to be a rising star within the Republican Party. And I think J.D. has impressed me immensely. I loved Vivek going into this election cycle. And at first, he's the one that I wanted as the VP. I think Vivek is going to be fantastic. I believe he's going to run for governor of Ohio, which would be great for Ohioans out there. Mike DeWine, their current governor, has always been a squish of a Republican and pretty weak. So I think having somebody like Vivek, allowing him to get that executive experience as governor, will be phenomenal for him. It may affect his ability to join up with Vance in the future as his VP because they'd both be from the same state. So, you know, they'd have to do some finagling there. Maybe you can bring in a Ron DeSantis, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I think what JD gives us is he gives us the education and the ability to communicate and articulate ideas, even Trump's ideas better than Trump can himself sometimes, that Vivek can, but he's also got a little bit more of a dog in him. So Vivek is a very empathetic figure. He's a really nice guy, and that's how he's been able to win hearts and minds. But JD's got a little bit of that meanness that Trump has, and that's really what we needed combating against the left in this cycle. And I think he's going to be great. I think Trump needs to utilize him in ways that we've never seen a vice president use before, and they really need to tag team this administration together. I think if you have Vance going out there the way he has during this campaign and handling the media, going on their shows, because they're not going to be able to deny having the vice president of the United States on, whether they want to or not. So anytime that you need to pass big legislation, executive orders, you're doing things out there, rather than Trump, you know, giving a press conference, he's going to do what he does, right? He's Donald Trump. He ultimately, even though he's gotten much better at listening and delegating, he's going to do what he's going to do. So, you know, he can't help himself, and that's great. That's why we love him and why he drives us crazy sometimes. But he's learned a lot. He's matured a lot, especially after what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where they almost killed him. But I think you send JD out there as kind of your attack dog, and you're the arbiter of your plans, and you utilize him in that manner. It also keeps him on his toes and keeps him in the forefront, right? So that when Trump's legacy ends here, JD will be able to take MAGA going forward into the future as a leader for the next 8 years after that, potentially. So I think that would be great. But oh yeah, I agree. I agree with Den Hawkins saying Russell Brand. We had so many people that really crossed the aisle here that we never would have expected before. And Joe Rogan really frustrated me for a long time because I believe I said this last week. Joe Rogan is a dude that was MAGA just to the core without him admitting it. He's a UFC guy. He's a comedian. He loves to hunt. He went from, if you ever watched the show Meat Eater, which I would recommend to anybody unless you're completely squeamish about hunting and things like that, fantastic show. I saw, the episodes where he went on, learned to hunt for the first time, and then the man went from hunting with rifles to being like a primitive hunter now, using bows and all that stuff, and he's totally hooked. So I was like, this dude is as freedom-oriented and as masculine as it gets. How could he possibly not be MAGA? He is MAGA to the core. It's in his DNA, whether he wanted to admit it or not. And so I think he wanted to hold back. He wanted to try to maintain that neutrality as long as possible because of his show, But it was pretty much inevitable that this was going to happen. You could see the chemistry that he and Trump had on the show and how much he enjoyed, talking to him, the topics that they went through. I think Trump did a great job of showing his humanity and articulating his knowledge much better than any other forum, because I think even some of us, because we see the hard-hitting Trump all the time, right? He's trolling the left. He's beating them down. He's articulating his big ideas, and he's got a sense of humor that sometimes we don't see almost the business side of Trump. His knowledge of history, which is more impressive than I thought ever before. A lot of his anecdotes, we miss a lot of those things. Maybe if you watched The Apprentice back in the day, you would have seen a lot more of that. But it's almost like they've behaved as if none of this ever happened. That every celebrity didn't love Donald Trump before 2016, and he really was one of the most famous men in the world, adored by millions and adored by the elites in Hollywood and in the political spaces. So it was inevitable for Joe. And then, bringing on JD Vance. JD Vance was great. Never thought I'd heard JD Vance drop an F-bomb. I thought that was hilarious. And then you close it out with Elon really articulating and making the final case there for not only Donald Trump, but the importance of video games. So Elon Musk really did us all here a solid in showing that you can be a dude, you can be a genius, and playing video games is important in life nowadays because it'll up your motor skills, and it's just a lot of fun. So I thought it was hilarious to see Elon talk about, being one of the top 20 Diablo players in the world. That was great. And seeing him and Joe talk about Quake back in the day and having LAN parties and stuff. That was great. And I think that really, all of those interviews, everything that Trump had done, the entire strategy that he had with going through Barron, his son, of going to a lot of the bro podcasts, so to speak, and really targeting the forgotten demographic. Because we know that for nearly 2 decades, women have been outvoting men in, participating more in elections than men. And obviously, the last few decades, were about, the feminist movement for good and for the way that it derailed. Obviously, the left has derailed a lot of the feminist movement, just like they derail a lot of social movements, right? It starts with something good like equal rights, and then it goes totally into left field, pun intended, completely. And then they go off the deep end to transgender stuff and men being toxic masculinity and all this, but men kind of being the forgotten demographic in general in this country and focusing in on that. But the final numbers that came out of the election will actually show that it was a very broad coalition that ended up voting for Trump, because I don't think that people would have ever expected that you would have seen 20%. And let's just bring up the numbers right now, because we got the chart. Let's bring up the chart here of these demographic shifts and how they went. So we got age groups here. Let's go with demographics first and the shifts, and then we will go with where everything stands. So you can see how much has shifted red because of Trump from 2020. So it's interesting because the mod extraordinaire brought up to me the other day, she was telling me isn't it offensive that when it comes to white people, they always mention education, and every other demographic they don't. It's because, they can throw, kind of white people under the bus and be racist towards them. But if you do that to anybody else, because what they try to do that with non-college educated is that the media tries to imply that if you don't have a college degree, you're an idiot, which is absurd, because a lot of the richest men and women in history with the greatest companies never got a college degree. Tradesmen make great money and own their own businesses. And really, unless you have a degree in like engineering, medicine, law, IT, most of them are business, I guess. Most of them are useless. And we know that a lot of these people that have social science degrees, they're not even educated themselves. They don't actually read books about philosophy or history or anything like that, because if they actually did, they would understand what's going on in this country, and they would also understand why Marxism and all these other social theories are bankrupt, not only morally, but historically bankrupt. They've always failed. So, they don't even utilize those degrees well. So anyway, that's just something that I always find interesting. But you can see how the margins for every demographic, for, you know, non-college educated white men and women, white people in general, men going from the boomer generation to Gen X, even college educated men, women in general shifted over, especially suburban women. I think we're +5 with Trump, which I think nobody really expected. Even millennials, older millennials, 30 to 44, only really extremely older individuals, senior citizens. So I guess the really old boomers kind of shifted a little bit towards Democrats, and, you know, white college educated women shifted over. But every demographic had massive, or at least marginal, swings to Donald Trump from 2020. And it just shows that the narrative just wasn't working. The narrative that the Democrats had pushed, and even some of the things that we started believing, really weren't the case at all. And I think that that's what's really impressive, that Trump, I think, even outperformed our wildest dreams in what he was able to achieve in everything that he did. And you know, I think that just really shows that, you know, I think for decades, we're going to be studying what happened in this campaign. We're really going to study this period in history, right? Going from Barack Obama to now Trump's second term. It's going to be fascinating, absolutely fascinating. The information age, the social media age elections, and how much influence the internet has had on the way that elections are run. Because the big thing that really changed, I think, Twitter, the original Twitter in 2016, helped catapult Trump. His rallies, he had the combination of rallies and mean tweets that really were unique within that space in that year. And then this year, with Twitter returning as X, with Elon purchasing it and making it a true free speech platform. And again, Trump doing some 900 rallies, I think. I'm not sure if that includes the 2016 era or not. But it really is something unprecedented. And I don't think that we will ever see anything like that again, because there is no human being that I have ever seen that has the stamina of Donald Trump. And I think that's part of the reason why. I know that Elon credits seeing, you know, Trump rise from being shot and, you know, raising his fists in the air and saying, fight, 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 with really the turning point for him. But I also think, if you know anything about Elon Musk, is that the man never sleeps either. He's tweeting all the time. He's playing Diablo, and he's running major corporations that are doing things the likes of which have never been seen before. And he has a direct hand on all of them, you know, being a genius himself, the Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne of our time in many ways. And Howard Hughes on another level without the insanity. But, you know, I think he saw a kindred spirit in Donald Trump and in somebody that never gives up, that has high expectations in the people around him, and that just never stops. The guy, both of those men have energy that never seems to have any sort of limit. And to see Trump, who's, you know, 80 years old, you know, be able to just keep going day after day, night after night, week after week, for years, nonstop, balls to the wall, he's a freak of nature. So even Vance and all these guys, I don't think we'll ever see what we saw these last few years. And so that's something that we will, you know, tell our children and our grandchildren about. And hopefully it's a legacy that will keep this country on the right path for decades to come. Because I really feel right now we've been given a reprieve, right? We know that the deep state, the globalists, the uniparty, they're not going to quit. They're not going to quit. So, you know, we've kind of gone through what happened on election night, some of the coalition that he's built. Obviously, look, bringing Tulsi Gabbard in, who's been fantastic. I was very skeptical about her for a long time because her stance on the Second Amendment has never been that great. She's changed on that. I haven't even had a sip of my coffee yet. Her stance on that has changed greatly over the last few years, which, you know, has heartened me. I love seeing that. But her her love for the military while also being anti-war, her ability to articulate her ideas and to stand up against people in her when she was a Democrat, stand up to all those candidates, take down Kamala. So she's the one that really exposed Kamala and caused Kamala to quit the first time around. And her attack on the media, going on The View and really laying it out on Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg has always been impressive. So she's fantastic. So I think that that she was a great pickup, and seeing her cross the aisle was massive, especially as a as a woman who is a Democrat. So that just shows the broad coalition. Then RFK, coming from a legendary Democrat family, no matter how we feel about them, in a lot of ways, I think, it could be argued that JFK was one of the most popular presidents of all time. Obviously, we know how he was murdered and assassinated. We still don't know the truth about that, whether it was, really Lee Harvey Oswald randomly doing it, whether it was the Communist Coalition, with the Soviet Union and Cuba, whether it was the mob for him trying to take them down, or the CIA working through the mob, which when we spoke about Mike Benz and him exposing the deep state and the intelligence state manipulating elections since 1948, we know that they had ties using the mob in Italy to manipulate their elections after World War II. So that's a plausible theory if you want to go down that path. So and Bobby Kennedy being an extremely popular politician in his own right, to see that pretty much American aristocracy join the side of Trump's populist movement was huge, especially when it comes to his excellent viewpoints on the healthcare system, on food, and obviously the intelligence state. Massive pickup, and something else that probably helped put Trump over the top, especially in those Rust Belt states. And now we have this broad coalition. And, at first I was worried about it because, it's like, well, they're Democrats. What are they going to do? But, when we're being honest, we can see that the right has become authoritarian in its own way. And we really do have a warmongering uniparty. So to have people that are anti-war, pro-American, and really want to expose the deep state and the globalists, let's bring them on, right? We know that they will give their opinions. We know that they'll keep Trump on track, Elon as well. I think that's good, because I know that if there's one thing that RFK and Elon are going to bring to Trump, is that if Trump ever starts getting a little bit soft on certain things, and that, the deep state starts trying to get their tentacles into him again, they're not going to cut him slack. They're going to be like, hey, no, you're not going to make these mistakes again. They're going to hold him accountable. And I think that that's great, because that's really what we need. Because I think we had a lot of people that were duplicitous to Trump, and we had other people that were, that at least behaved like yes men and women. And so now that you've got some powerful voices that don't seem to be afraid to, not necessarily go rogue, but they're going to stay the course because of what they're true believers in their issues and freedom of speech. And, obviously entrepreneurship, when you've got Elon and pushing humanity forward into space and other technologies, and RFK's zeal for, against the pharmaceutical companies and the intelligence agencies, that's fantastic. They're not going to let Trump, become weak on those things. And Tulsi, when it comes to the anti-war stance, I don't believe that she will either. So let me go through some of the things in the chat. I've been going on this rant. I've been on this roll lately where I just go in an hour almost without even scripting anything, or really I just let the flow of ideas come through, and I've been enjoying doing the show this way. Hopefully you do. If you haven't smashed that like button, subscribe to the channel. We had almost 50 people here watching. You guys are dropping super chats like crazy. I appreciate it. This is, one of the best shows that we've had in a long time. So fantastic. I love you guys for being here. Rumble, we've got Deconstruct and Jesper over there. We got 11 people watching on Rumble. We got quite a few people watching on X as well. We got 12. So we're going out on all the platforms today. And shout out to Rumble for doing such an excellent job on election night, putting up massive numbers. And again, alternative media has become very powerful over these last few years. And it's great to see platforms like X and Rumble really gaining traction and getting to the point where they can rival YouTube and the legacy media. I think it's extremely important. Even though we've got this massive victory right now, we know that the left is not going to quit. They won't. Now we'll go through what I think is going to happen to them a little bit, but let's check out what you guys are discussing in the chat. Tiny monitor, that's what she said, says Wayfair. Yeah, I've got this weird setup where I have 3 monitors of different sizes. I've got a 32-inch over here for gaming. I've got a 27-inch over on my right-hand side. And then I've got like a portable monitor that's lower, so my camera's at eye level in the middle. So, and then I usually share everything off the middle monitor, control everything on the right, and then I've got, the chat and everything on the other one. So it gets a little bit crazy. How's it going, JT Gunn? All right, so let's see what you guys are saying. Let's just go to the beginning and shout outs to everybody. We had JM the Elite Fan who came in earlier. Zeltroid, of course, the famous Johnny 64, himself dropping in. Hope you're doing great, brother, and the wife and your lovely wife and your newborn child are doing fantastic. We've got Meow Meow, Axzilla, Den Hawk Tua, Captain Pop, Geektron. I'm proud as a Latino that we gave Trump 55% of the men vote. Huge. We're going to go through some of those demographics more in detail, but essentially we got 20% of the black male vote, which is massive. 45% total of the Latino vote, 55% of which being Latino males. Awesome. The Puerto Ricans obviously didn't care about what Tony Hinchcliffe said, which is great because, as I've said, I think a lot of Latinos have pride and they like to talk a big game, but sometimes, when push comes to shove, there's a machismo here and you can't tell somebody what to do. Latinos are like Marty McFly in Back to the Future. If you say something, they're going to want to fight. They're going to get pissed off about it, but ultimately they're going to do the right thing. And I think the Latinos and black men were just over the entire get it queen narrative. They were tired of all of that, especially with Hispanics. We believe in traditional values. The vast majority of us are Catholic or Christian, and we still, kind of have very traditional and familial family structures. We can have multi-generational households. We respect our elders. We take care of our grandparents, and parents. You stay with your parents for a long time, and there's no problem with that. Sometimes everybody just ends up living in a house together and raising each other's families. So it's always been a conservative minded, almost like how the Amish have their structure, how America used to be back in the day, if we're being honest, that type of familial structure. So I think the Democrats now, and again, I'll discuss a little bit of this too if we don't run out of time, are at their own peril. They're going to go after Latinos and, call them racist, call them all these names, which we've already been seeing a lot of that. I'll pop up some of those tweets that I've seen here. So it's always interesting. And this is something that I've seen as a Hispanic, because we're multiracial for the most part. You end up with, Hispanics that are more the European Spaniards. So, white. You have a lot of the islanders, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and Dominicans that are mixed with some Native Americans, the Taino tribes, African slaves, and again, the Spanish colonists. So you've got triracial there. And in South America, you have a very similar demographic. So you end up with a lot of that. But it's always funny how on the left, when it's convenient, we're minorities. When it isn't, we're white and we're racist. So now you're seeing that we've been thrown under the bus. Latinx doesn't exist anymore. Now we're all Latinos that we can get deported, and they want us deported. They don't want us here anymore. They're out. They become worse than any sort of right-wing extremist that we've ever seen that they've called out. So I think it's beautifully ironic, and I've been fighting a few battles with this, and I love too how they go after Puerto Ricans, and it seems like nobody on any side of the aisle or in any demographic or even other Hispanics don't realize that Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States. So we are it's similar to a territory, and you know, we're US citizens by birth. Like that's just it. So they're like, "Oh, I had this person come after me the other day," and they're like, "Oh, you're going to get deported." Like, you know, somebody had commented that they didn't understand on Twitter why Latinos vote against their own self-interest. And it's like, first of all, we're not this monolithic group. No racial group is monolithic. That right there is bigotry 101, right? They assume that you're all the same. Everybody's the same. So every black person is the same. Every Asian person is the same. Every Latino is the same. That's it. They're all the same. Just like how all white people are the same too. As if we didn't have, you know, Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants, Polish immigrants, the originals from Great Britain, all this stuff, you know, everything has been, you know, reduced to your single racial identity or ethnic background. So always beautiful how the left does that. And they try to push us all against each other when it doesn't matter what race you are. There is some sort of measure of diversity there and ancestral difference, you know, that you can look back to, where you have different customs, foods, and everything like that. And in many cases, languages, the Germans, you know, we've got all this stuff here. So, but you know, it's conveniently forgotten, right? Unless they need to throw you in somewhere. So, you know, they're like, well, you're going to get deported too. And I was like, deported to where? What? Sent back to Puerto Rico? I was like, it's part of the United States. I don't even need a passport. I'll just come back and fly on a plane. Like it's not a big deal. And so, you know, normally I'm pretty good. You know, I try to be good and Christian. So I'll go back and forth. But this is the first time that I was like, hey, dumbass, Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. I don't have to worry about this crap. Immigration is not an issue for me. Sorry. And I don't care about what some stupid comedian said when he told a joke that the worst crime that he committed was that he's not that funny. So that's about it. That's the only offensive thing that I found about that. And it seems like most other Puerto Ricans agreed, because Osceola County, which has the highest Puerto Rican population in Florida, flipped for Trump. And I believe that by their demographics, most Puerto Ricans voted for Trump in Osceola County too. And obviously Pennsylvania, which has the third largest Puerto Rican population in the U.S., went for Trump. So it was a big nothing burger. They try to divide and conquer. They try to turn us against each other, and it's failed at every moment. And that's what these numbers say. I mean, when you see every group that was supposed to vote for Kamala Harris, pretty much, or at least they would have thought, you know, white women, Latinos, and black men, you know, have massive shifts. And in some cases, the majority of them voted for Trump, or they got historic numbers for Trump. It shows that all those narratives are untrue. They're completely untrue. And so, you know, I think that that's a great thing moving forward. I think the war between the sexes is also overly exaggerated, and that's something they really wanted us. They wanted us as men to be angry with women, and for women to be angry with men. They overblew the abortion issue. You know, it's really the extreme left that has a problem with that. We saw most of the abortion bills for late-term abortions fail. In Florida, late-term abortion and marijuana both failed on the ballot, which I was really surprised about the marijuana one, because Trump endorsed it and DeSantis went against it. So I think that shows the nuance that people can have, where they're like, yeah, you know, I can vote for Trump, but I don't really believe in this other issue. And they gave DeSantis a bone there. It was a poorly written bill too, but that's neither here nor there. That probably had a huge factor with it. So sorry to the libertarians. I know you're upset about that one, but it is what it is. Oh yeah, gotta have more of that coffee. So great to see those numbers, and it's something that we have to build off in the future. And it really comes down to, it's about the economy. And I think the other thing is you can't attack the voters. If, the left-wing media, either purposefully or out of stupidity, because we know that a lot of these people many of them are stupid. They're apparatchiks and just talking heads. They're pawns for the, the intelligentsia and the government, essentially, the globalist, what have you, the intelligence state, all of them. But there are some that we know these people aren't that stupid. They don't actually believe these things. They're just evil and they're authoritarian. So for them to push so many of these narratives, and really the big mistake was when Donald Trump insults people, he's going after the elites. He's going after the media. He's not going after Democrat voters. I can't think of a time where I heard Trump say that Democrat voters are idiots or that they're garbage or anything of that sort of nature. However, the left can't help but say MAGA is evil. They are all evil. They're fascists. They're like Hitler. Anybody that votes for Trump is an idiot. So that's a huge difference. And, people are not actually dumb. Some people are a little bit crazy, and we can talk about how we move forward, with people that may have voted for Kamala. But I think that I think that's a critical error, and it's something that the Democrat Party will probably learn from. If they don't, that's great, because I'd like them to never win an election again. But we also don't want conservatives or whatever this movement is, the populist MAGA movement, I guess at this point, to really rest on its laurels and suffer from the same consequences of what occurred with the left, because the left was a very broad coalition, too broad in many cases. How you can have, the pro-Hamas crowd, the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic crowd combined with, the tranny madness never made sense to me. And like ultra left-wing feminism. Those are all divergent groups that really shouldn't be a coalition. They don't believe in the same things, other than, I guess, they hated America. So that's really all they had in common, but they had nothing that they really passionately cared about, if you're being honest. None of those groups would actually go and hang out together, and if they were having sincere conversations, they'd realize that they should be mortal enemies in many regards. So it's amazing that they were able to hold that together for as many years as they did. And it really was because they used racial identity politics and identified one man as their enemy and made him the avatar for all their avarice, to use some thesaurus SAT words there. So that's not something that I think they'll ever be able to replicate again. And if they attempt to do so, they will lose out. Look, if what we're seeing here with now the racial attacks against Latinos continues on, they'll never win again, because Hispanics in this country have the highest birth rate, I believe, of any demographic. And that's really, it comes down to the numbers, right? So it doesn't matter if you deport illegal immigrants, many of them which are Hispanic, that's not going to matter. Because also, here's another thing that they forget. They're like, how could all these Hispanics have voted to get themselves deported? And I'm like, well, if they voted legally, which, I mean, let's be honest, we know that there were probably a lot of illegal votes in states. Because if you look at, if there's something you may have noticed or not, or may have heard, every state that Kamala won didn't have voter ID requirements. Interesting. And then every state that Trump won, except for 2, all required voter ID. So maybe there were a decent amount of illegals that voted in those states, but they would not have voted for Trump, let's be honest. So any Latino that voted for Trump most likely did so in a state with voter ID, which means that they're not legals, which means that they're citizens, which means that they're not going to get deported. So they don't even understand. They can't even comprehend what the hell it is that they're talking about. They have no idea. They're a bunch of fools out there. So it's wonderful that's what we're up against. So the more that they do this, the more that they actually throw offensive vitriol towards Latinos, the more that they will continue to dig a hole for themselves that they will never be able to recover from. So again, the Democrat Party post-mortem is going to be fascinating because they have such extremist factions. It's not going to be the same as when Mitt Romney lost in 2012 to Barack Obama. It won't be the same as when Trump lost in 2020 because we know that there were shenanigans going on and a lot of other factors, with the mail-in ballots and COVID. What happened to those, nearly, 20 million votes that Biden had more than Kamala, or I guess it's like 15 million at this point. Where did those go? I don't know. That's pretty suspicious. So, it will be fascinating to see the truth that's uncovered over the conspiracy that led to, Biden being deposed, how they were even able to install him in the first place because, they left him in the basement during the 2020 campaign and covered it up his obvious cognitive decline at that time. You knew it. I knew it. They knew it. But it seems like most people didn't realize it until that debate a few months ago, which is absurd. But hey, the media was lying about it the whole time. They all turned like on a dime, right? Then you install Kamala, who was the worst possible candidate they could have ever chosen. She was the first one to drop out of their 2020 primaries. She is essentially as unlikable as Hillary Clinton with 5% of Hillary Clinton's intelligence. Because as much as we may despise Hillary Clinton, she's an evil genius. So Kamala does not even have that benefit. She is inarticulate and she's a bumbling fool. And she's an unlikable elitist on top of that from California. So she had really nothing going for her except for the Democrat machine and the propaganda. But she couldn't articulate anything herself. So I think, it will, again, it'll be fascinating. We'll see what the Democrats do. I think that personally, if I were to give them advice, which, I guess I really shouldn't give them any advice, but these things are pretty obvious to me, is you're going to have to blow up the party, take out the far left, get rid of the identity politics, eliminate the LGBTQ stuff. That's all got to go away. Not make abortion an issue anymore. It's gone to the states. Trump essentially took that off the table. I know that a lot of the pro-life movement was extremely unhappy about that. I'm curious to see, myself as a born again Christian, the way I feel about it is that obviously I don't think that getting an abortion is a moral thing to do, but ultimately that's between you and God, right? If you choose to do that, I can't do anything about that decision or not. I'd like to see people not to do it, but it's now a states' rights issue, and he was never going to make it a national abortion mandate. So I think that issue is kind of now off the table. So Democrats would be smart to never go down that path again because it clearly wasn't as devastating as a lot of us probably thought it was going to be with the female vote. And you really need to go back to working class Americans and, kind of the old school Democrat Party. Now, the problem with them is that Trump's populist movement is kind of going to go with all of those things, plus a pro-American, low taxation, blend. So kind of the best things, a little bit of, old school liberalism, which liberalism is really, it kind of represents all freedom, right? They've taken the term liberal and turned it around. So you're going to take a little bit from old school, the blue collar, working man demographic that the Democrat Party used to supposedly be about. You're going to take a little bit of the libertarianism, either low or no taxation approach and low regulation approach with the same thing from the conservative movement with a little bit of morality and traditional values thrown in there. And, and all of that, and having a pro-American, but not an imperialistic, military, warmongering, mentality behind it. So we've excised the neocons. We've gotten rid of the far left. We've got the populists, and we've incorporated some libertarian values. So if this is able to maintain and coalesce into an articulate movement where right now it's not just some sort of strange alliance, and it can become something new going forward that we can expand upon. I don't really see what the Democrats can do to defeat that, because, you know, what are they would just pretty much have to copy this movement in order for it to work. Now, we also need to look, and like I said, JD's fantastic. I think we have a deep bench with everybody else that we have coming up, so that may not be a problem. But the Democrats have nobody that's like that. Everybody that they have in their young bench is a far left-wing personality, so they're going to need to dig deep and find something new on their side, because a Gavin Newsom and AOC, those aren't going to work. Megan Whitmer, that's not going to work for them. Even the Josh Shapiro, who would have been a much better choice for VP, and I'm sure that's going to be one of the big things that the Democrats talk about, is they allowed their blind anti-Semitism to get, destroy them so badly that they didn't choose their best VP chance, who probably would have given them Pennsylvania, and Josh Shapiro. But even he's too much of a leftist. So they're really going to have to figure this out. Will they be able to? Are they just too deeply embedded? Now they've got the neocons there too. So I think you have too many authoritarian forces to give that up. So it'll be interesting to see. Somebody earlier had asked about government workers. That how's it going, Armament and Access? Good to see you, buddy. How much of that are we going to see within the deep state? So I mean, I don't know. I think that okay. So let's look at the cabinet, right? I think that's a good segue here. So we know that in Trump's coalition right now, we've got JD as the VP. We got Vivek. I don't know where he's going to go. He's probably going to run for governor of Ohio, which I think that election is an off-year election, so it'll be in 26. So we may not have him for all that long. We got Tulsi. We got RFK for sure. And then Elon, Elon's probably going to be more like a special advisor. He's got his own companies, so he'll be kind of a free agent. So even if we create Doge for him, the Department of Government Efficiency, I'm not sure how that'll work with his companies. We don't really want him to, leave SpaceX, Tesla, and X. Those are just way too important right now. I think for just America in general and going beyond politics, we want to go to Mars and start colonizing that. I think we just got to take over Mars on behalf of the United States instead of humanity, and set up shop there. So that's our that could be our 51st or 52nd state instead, a Martian colony. So, or maybe because the moon, we've got a treaty on the moon, we can't claim the moon. But I don't know if we have anything like that for Mars right now, so we can kind of circumvent that, right? And then we'll have a red states and a red planet. So we have this broad coalition. I think if I'm being realistic, it will be interesting to see how much the bureaucratic state tries to do things. So I think that Trump's total victory, one of the good things that it's done is obviously it's killed the lawfare. We know that Jack Smith is not going to pursue those federal charges anymore, which we knew they were BS to begin with. I don't think that the state cases are going to survive very long. I just really think that Trump is the first president to truly have a mandate in decades, where by getting the popular vote on top of the Electoral College, getting the Senate and the House, it's just too huge to overcome. And basically exposing the media, this is a crippling blow to the deep in the bureaucratic state. So they won't be able to do what I thought that they would do. Now, they've got 70 days or so. They may try to do something terrible. He's already been almost assassinated twice. So could they try something like that? Maybe, but I do think that having the majority of the American people voting for him really gives them pause, because I think before they would have thought, well, only like the MAGA right is going to be the ones that we have to contend with. But I think because he is now essentially a unity president, if we're being perfectly honest, especially with the demographics that he's gotten in his voter base, they're not going to be able to get away with certain things, because now Americans at every level of every race, color, and creed will basically turn on them, and we're all going to be watching now. It's a permanent level of scrutiny that they're going to be dealing with, where a lot of us are never going to go back to the way things were. We won't allow it. So I think it would be very bold for them, and I think that he's put enough people in place that are true believers that it almost won't matter if they do that. So they kind of, it's a case of, if you strike me down now, I'll come back more powerful than ever. I think so. That may be thrown out of the window. We haven't seen the left-wing riots occur in mass like we thought. So I think, again, because of how overwhelmingly he's won, it has taken a lot of the wind out of their sails. So I think bureaucratic war is really what they're going to be able to do. Now, maybe they can try to pull us into World War III. I don't know. I think there's just going to be so much scrutiny. So I think the bureaucratic state is what they're going to try to do. They'll try to sabotage them from within. They may have lawsuits from all these government sector unions. They may try to do things like that. But at the same time, if Trump comes out pretty strong and his cabinet makeup it just starts throwing out really great ideas before this happens, and the American people really like what they're hearing even before he goes into office, it's just really going to make it very difficult for them. And I've never felt this level of confidence before, I'll be honest, and optimism. I almost think that that's really going to be their only path. And I think, I just think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to do a lot of the things that they wanted to do. Had he just only won the Electoral College, they would have tried lawfare on end. They probably would have tried to impeach him if he didn't get the House and the Senate. They could have done all these other things. Maybe they could have even tried to, end him before he got into office. But now that's pretty much off the table. We're seeing, countries, even Hamas is like they want to end the war against Israel. Putin's ready to talk. Xi wants to cool things down. So I think even their whole World War III angle is just slipping away. I don't think the Iranians are going to want to F with this. We saw that Bibi Netanyahu fired his defense secretary, who is closer with the Biden administration, despite the Biden administration seemingly, being adversarial towards Israel. That all changed as well. So it really seems as if the entire world, NATO now all of a sudden wants to spend a lot more money again. So everybody's already set all these things up. So I think they may now realize that they have to regroup and play the long con. So it is pretty crazy. So I think that tells you a lot, right? And this goes back to, this almost the spiritual nature of what's going on here, that it almost seems like a message went out in the universe, and God was basically like, look, everybody's going to chill for a bit. We're giving the world a chance here to go the right way. And we got like a 4-year reprieve to figure things out before, shit hits the fan again. Now, our enemies aren't going to quit, so we can't become too cocky. I think we have to keep watching. I always go back to one of my favorite quotes of all time. You see it on the side of the National Archives. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So we have to pay attention, but they know that they're going to be under a magnifying glass. So they're going to have to be subtle about the way they do things. So again, I think it'll be through the bureaucratic state trying to do sabotage things from within. But if he comes in with a plan to really start stripping the government apart, I don't think he's going to be able to do that in 4 years. I think really what we need is an audit of the federal government at every level, every department, every position, all of that. Find where the waste and the bloat are. take away a lot of the protections that federal workers had before, eliminate a lot of these unions or disincentivize them. The biggest threat that we may see actually may not be from DC, but it may be from Democrat governors. That's probably the attack vector that we'll see. We've already heard from the governor of Massachusetts. She said that she's not going to participate with any of these deportations of illegal immigrants. She will actually try to protect them. So that's a vector where you can have some sort of conflict, maybe, having to arrest a governor or something like that, which would cause some sort of chaos potentially. Newsom is pretty much saying that he's going to try to fortify California against the illegal, attacks of Donald Trump. So that may be the new strategy that they've got. And that would be an interesting strategy for them to do. I don't know how well it'll pay off, but it could cause some brush fires. Wouldn't it be ironic if after all of this, it's the left that tries to break away from the union in the end? They're basically doing what, again, it's everything that they accuse us of doing is what they end up doing themselves. So that would be ironic. But I also think, I think we got to change voting laws. I think voter ID has to be mandatory in federal elections. Like I said before, Kamala only won in states that didn't have voter ID. So it's possible that a lot of these states that are supposedly blue are actually conservative. And because, illegals and people that are dead are essentially voting, which they say is impossible. That doesn't happen at all. Well, I mean, I don't know. It really seems to. Then that will probably change a lot of things, and that may shift the map even further to the side of the conservative movement. That's something that you need to do. That would also open the door for us to do things without Congress, like you doing an Article 5 convention of the states. Which for those of you that don't know, the states themselves, if you get 35 of them out of 50, can submit and pass constitutional amendments, and Congress and the presidency can't, and the executive branch can't do anything about that. So there's a few different ways that we can do things to change things here and to limit the size of the bureaucratic state. But I think auditing, declassifying things is going to be huge, right? So if we can get the Epstein client list out there, the Diddy client list out there, if we can declassify documents regarding, COVID-19 and what happened there, if we can declassify documents about, JFK, RFK, MLK, all these other things that we've needed to know about and really expose the deep state. Now that will put more pressure and danger on Trump. But that will be where the most effective way of wrangling the government will be. Eliminating taxes, doing all that stuff. I believe that Trump really believes and would like to do those things. I don't know how realistic it's going to be. We will have to see also, I think, installing somebody who's not an old school Con Inc. GOPer, like Cornyn as the Senate Majority Leader is going to be critical. I believe that Rick Scott and Mike Lee are who a lot of people want. It seems like Rick Scott is gaining a lot of traction. He's from here in the great state of Florida. So we have to eliminate that GOP old guard from leadership positions in the 2 years for sure that we have. Historically, the incumbent president loses the midterm elections. So we have to see if Trump can make a difference with that. So that's why I think voter ID, good leadership in Congress, and auditing of the bureaucratic state, those are the ones, and declassifying things, that's what you got to do first, because that will help shore you up for the midterm elections where you can keep the supermajority and then close out the last 2 years, hopefully very strong, limit what the bureaucracy can do. I think that the media has lost a lot of credibility after this, so their propaganda machine is not going to be effective the way that it was before. And this can really set up a President J.D. Vance to continue Trump's legacy afterwards. So that's kind of the game plan that I would say is realistic and how you'd want to play it. Because doing things out of order means that you may lose sight of it. So it's going to be very, very critical. And then obviously mass deportations, you're going to have to figure that out, how you would do that logistically as well. I think that you'll have to punish companies that hire illegals. That will be the first thing that you do. Obviously have, ID. I forgot what the ID E-Verify, I believe is what it's called for employment at these companies. You'll have to heavily punish companies that hire illegals and pay them under the table. You're going to have to do raids on companies that do that stuff. You're going to have to, if you start tariffing, you'll have to be strategic about your tariffs. Republicans are not going to like eliminating all taxes and the chaos that that's going to bring, because it'll be chaotic. You're not going to have a consistent budget potentially. And you're going to have to explain, look, the libertarians hate tariffs too. The libertarians hate all taxes. We're not going to be able to eliminate all taxes. It's not going to happen. That will throw the entire country into disarray. It has to be a graduated long-term rollback, essentially, of all of this, so that you can reduce the size of government without creating a shock to the system. But you have to let the American people know, and you're going to have to let people of lower incomes and lower income realize that, I believe that, 40 to almost 50% of Americans don't pay taxes as it is right now. So eliminating income tax for them is not going to be a benefit that they may see, while adding tariffs is going to be something that they will see as a penalty as the price of certain products and services go up. But you really have to let people know you're going to potentially make, 15 to 25% more if you're in the middle class each year. So now I think personal responsibility is going to come into things, right? I think something that we saw in the past, and I was explaining this last night on the phone, was we used to buy products that lasted a lot longer. We had sewing machines, refrigerators, cars, products like that would last decades if you took care of them. Now everything is disposable because we buy it from basically slave labor in China. And that's another issue, right? That these factories in China have horrendous working conditions, and these people are getting paid slave wages. So if we want to bring back American jobs, those products are not going to be tariffed, obviously, if they're made in the United States. But we do have to make sure that they are definitely of a higher quality than foreign counterparts. A lot of companies are going to hate that too, because they want disposable products so that you keep buying more and more. We have to have a paradigm shift with all that stuff. We have to change our buying habits. We can't be all about consumption all the time. Now, technology is different. That's always advancing. So, computers, phones, things like that, a lot of that's going to become obsolete. But it is BS that companies build cell phones that you can't replace their batteries anymore. Everything is disposable, essentially. Clothes start falling apart. I used to have shirts that were made 20 years ago that still look great today. And I have shirts that I bought, 20 weeks ago that are falling apart. So we need to have higher standards for that stuff. And we need to expect more as a consumer, especially if we're going to pay more. And again, maybe we just buy less of certain things that we don't need. I don't think that there's anything bad with that. I don't think that you're restricting it. So I think that's where we have to go. So, these are all different things. These are also just ideas. It's going to take a lot to figure out how to balance all these things. And there is going to have to be a balance, right? I think we get money back also from not going to foreign wars. That's going to reduce our budget. I would rather that go to Americans that actually do need help. I think we do have to rethink the welfare state. We have to eliminate fraud and waste, but we also do have to help Americans out. I mean, look at how many people have gotten wiped out by this economy, by inflation, and, automation is going to be a thing. So we do have to give people a safety net to help them out, because many people are not in circumstances because they chose to be lazy or decisions like that. So we do have to have a balance. I think you can eliminate cutoffs in welfare, have things graduate so that as people rise up the ladder, the economic ladder, instead of cutting them off completely and then screwing them over and then disincentivizing them to get jobs. You know, they slowly get weaned off of welfare to the point where they don't need it anymore. Things like that. Obviously, when it comes to abortion, I think the way that you disincentivize people getting abortions is that you have to help. You do have to help women out and give them alternatives. Schick 74. Reagan, good morning, America. Yes, there you go. Thank you, Schick, for the $2 super chat. So I think these are all things that I've been thinking about, talking about, not necessarily traditional conservative or even libertarian values, but if you're trying to combine different coalitions and do things a little bit differently, and you're bringing back foreign money while also reducing spending and trying to help Americans rather than foreigners, you have to think about things a certain way while also, you know, fighting a trade war and bringing back manufacturing and dealing with Elon building robots in the future, because that's going to unemploy a lot of people. So we'll have new industries, we'll have new things going on, but we also have to take care of our own so that we don't lose them, and that we do have a country that people love. So I think that's all things that we need to look into. And I think with the broad coalition that Trump has built here, we're going to see a lot of new ideas and new things that people have never seen before. And so one of the biggest barriers that we may have is just the GOP itself for a lot of these things, because it's going to freak them out. They're going to see a lot of libertarian and moderate economic things that they've never seen before. And a lot of them are going to be like, I don't want that. That seems like either handouts or just crazy stuff that we've never done before. And it's like, no, these are some things that we're going to have to do. And we innovate going forward, because we also need to undo the damage that the left has done. The left has convinced a lot of people that socialism is good, that they don't have to work, that they can get bullshit degrees that give them no prospects. So we have to, first of all, the education system is totally jacked up. So we have to do something about the Department of Education. We have to do something about universities, eliminating tenure, teachers unions, all that stuff. That's got to go. But that means we have to teach people about personal responsibility, personal finance. These are things that need to be taught all the time, starting young and going into every year until high school, so that when students graduate, they are so tired of knowing how to balance a checkbook, balance their own budgets, disincentivize the use of credit cards, and have them save, that it'll literally be ingrained into them the way that gender ideology is being ingrained into them now. Thankfully, Trump did talk about this, and I'll play the clip because I've been going on a roll here today without really bringing up any articles or anything. I've just been riffing today. We have to dismantle a lot of these departments, but figure out how we teach Americans to be better while also bringing back those that have been brainwashed, so that not only can they be effective members of society, they don't become the next leaders that try to sabotage things. So we're not authoritarians. We don't believe in re-education camps. So how do we do that? We have to do it through some sort of other incentives. Now, some of these people, unfortunately, that you're seeing screaming right now, they're lost. They have mental health issues. So we have to do something about mental health too. I'm not being humorous about it. It's absolutely true. We have a massive mental health crisis in this country. We have a homelessness crisis in this country. We have to do something about it, or else we're going to lose a significant portion of millennials and Gen Z. That's just true. And those are some of the largest populations coming up. The boomers are slowly dying off. Gen X is going to get old, and there's not as many of them. Gen X helped save this generation because they're the sane parents whose kids have gone crazy now. So we do have to find a way to make sure that this is not a temporary state of being. Thankfully, it seems like young men especially in Gen Z are starting to see this stuff. They're much more entrepreneurial. Everybody's doing streams now. You know, everybody's doing services on the internet using AI, all the stuff to become their own business leaders, make their own money. And thankfully, You know, it's a new era of patronage. It's kind of like the Renaissance, where, you know, viewers like you, as PBS used to say, are really empowering us, because now you get to choose that if you like somebody, if you like what they talk about, if you like the service they provide, you give them money. It's like the Renaissance. If you liked a certain artist, you funded their artwork and they went out and did it. This is also where the right has failed. We have to fund the arts. We have to get into entertainment. We have to, I think media we've already broken into, and we've made a paradigm shift there with legacy media to, you know, streamers and different websites, whether it's, you know, the Blaze, Timcast, Daily Wire, whether you like them or not, they're new media. They're not controlled by the left anymore. Everybody's doing it. So that's kind of the new area where we've broken into. We have to do that with movies and with entertainment content. You know, Eric July, Young Ripa, he's done that with the Ripaverse. He's been extremely successful. We need 100 more Ripas out there. You know, Josiah and Epic Mike are trying to do that with Epic Verse, and I wish them all the best. They're awesome. I apologize that I haven't been on their streams for a long time. It's just I've been an old man going to sleep early for a while, but I'll jump back in there one of these days. But that goes without saying. That's what we need. So we need to make our own video games. You know, we really need to push in the space, and we need to innovate. So we have to go back to the moon. We got to go to Mars. We have to give people hope and show the awesome things that America used to do and what put us on top and made us a superpower. It wasn't the military industrial complex. That's what they made us believe, that America is the new Roman Empire, and that the reason why we rule is through bombs, planes, and ships. No, it's because we won on the entertainment front, and that's how we really defeated the Soviet Union. And then the left and even our enemies took that and used it against us, and our intelligence agencies used it against us and started propagandizing you know, the citizenry here. So we have to take that back, and we have to win the hearts and minds, and we have to produce content that people love and have an attachment to and become lifelong fans of. We need new Star Wars. We need new Marvel, and I'm not talking about revitalizing those franchises. I'm talking about brand new franchises in their own right that meet or exceed what those franchises were. So those are all the things that we need. We have to win. We have to set up cultural institutions now in the wake of the institutions that we no longer trust and the ones that have been utterly destroyed by the left. I don't know if we can revive a lot of that legacy stuff. I'd love to see it. You see what's here around me. You know, I love a lot of these franchises. I think some of them are done forever. So we have to come up with something new so that the generations going after us will fall in love with that, and they will have something to look forward to. We have to give people hope, and I think that that's what we've had. We can't be afraid of our faith. I think that that's going to be core in here. We've lived in a very immoral society for a long time, and we do need a common moral fabric. So, you know, not everyone has to be a Christian, but we do have to have a unified kind of standard of belief here. And there are certain things we don't do. We don't mess with kids. We do have equal rights, but, you know, we have to have these standards because Europe has fallen into godlessness, and you're seeing a rise in other religions that don't have our values, like Islam. And, you know, let's be honest, with them, with the breed of Islam that they're seeing, it's converted the sword. So we do need counters to a lot of these movements, and we need something that shows the world that we're not depraved. We're not all about, you know, this insanity that we're pushing that's poisoning the minds of people throughout the world. So we need to give a positive standard that we can go through. It can't be OnlyFans, transgender stuff, and all the other crap that we see. Let's be honest, it's not good. It poisons our minds, and it's really killing us. And it's killing the relationship between men and women because it's also making relationships look transactional. I think Andrew Tate is the opposite side of that coin, and he's awful. You guys know I despise Andrew Tate because I think we need We need to bring back the family structure more than ever. And whether it's the extreme feminist movement on one side or the, I don't even know what to call the, what Andrew Tate has at this point, and the Pearl Davises of the world. It's the antithesis of that, and it's the opposite extreme that's just as bad. No, we need to bring back families. We need people that want to have children, to raise those children, and to raise new generations that have American values. And we need to find out what American values are again, and have that moral standard if we want to be the leaders going into the future of not only this country, but this world and beyond. Because we are going to become a multiplanetary society one day. And we want to make sure that, Earth doesn't fall into decay, and that we have something positive to spread into the universe. So I think that's great. That's a good way to start. Look at that. Now I've nearly gone 2 hours here with just riffing it off. So let's take a few minutes now as I start winding down. Thank you again so much for everybody that's been watching. You guys are great. This has been a fantastic show. I'm extremely happy that you're all here. And, it'll be interesting to see how things work out, because in a lot of ways, it feels like we've accomplished a mission. So I started years ago on YouTube as a Second Amendment advocate. And I know that that's where a lot of you came from. And, my goal at the time, a lot of things have changed over the years. I've had a lot of ups and downs. You guys know about a lot of those. Relationships have come and gone, but it really feels like, I started on a mission. And my mission at first was that I was angry that our rights, especially the Second Amendment, were being trampled on. And I saw that politicians on both sides were trying to eliminate our ability to be able to defend themselves. I was off social media for years, and I started going on Instagram for the first time and discovered a gun community there and discovered the power of social media with that. Went to a Second Amendment rally in 2019, linked up with a lot of people who became friends and mentors over the years, and that during the pandemic, brought me onto different shows and podcasts, and that inspired me and told me that, you should start a podcast. You should talk about these issues. You know a lot about history. You seem to be able to articulate yourself well, and you're into a lot of different things. You don't look like a regular gun owner. And so I went off with that. And then I wanted to use the Second Amendment as a Trojan horse to talk about social issues as well. I know a lot of you love guns just as much as I do, but you also love movies. You love video games. And so that's why I do the gaming streaming and all that stuff, because I love all of these things. Not all of us most of us are not single issue voters. We're not, 2-dimensional. We love multiple things. We have a lot of different hobbies. We like different genres of things, whether it's, food, movies, other forms of entertainment, 9mm versus 45, AKs versus ARs. Everybody's got different tastes. Some people love almost everything. So, and we all come from different walks and backgrounds. Some of us were born here. Some of us were born in other countries. Some of you are watching from other countries right now, but you still love, America and what it stands for. And you have a love for freedom and, your individual rights. So it was important to really bring all of this together. And that's what I've tried to do since, some things have worked out. Some things haven't. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep doing streaming. I've struggled, with it for a long time, just because I used to do certain things with other people for a long time. And, for different reasons, those things didn't work out. But I realized that I never did this it never started because this isn't a huge channel or anything like that. It never started because I wanted to make a career out of it. It always started because I wanted to let individuals know that you could live a positive life, that you could have your faith, you could be a good person, believe in these values, and not be ostracized, that you should stand up for yourself and articulate your ideas, that you can love this country and love the things that you do, and you're not a loser. You're not a weirdo. You're not a fascist. You're not misogynistic or anything like that. And that, your voice has power. And that's what I always wanted to do. So I appreciate all of you for the support that you've given me. And I hope that, and I've met many of you in the past when I used to go to different meetups and all of that. And I appreciate all of you, the conversations that I've had with many of you. And I see a lot of, I've seen a lot of the same motivations that I have in a lot of you. And I think that's fantastic. And that's how we're going to continue this journey. So it does feel like we had a massive victory this past week. And in some ways, I'll be curious to see, depending on the reaction of the left, depending on what happens with, the video game industries. I know some people got into all of this just because it was a grift. So it'll be interesting to see which ones, just got here for the ride and which people stick around and how they change things. I think one of the things that the left did and why the left has fallen apart in a lot of ways is that there were a lot of people that may have paved the road of to hell with good intentions, and they got started the right way because they believed in things. But when they achieved their mission, they went to look for something else, and they started going smaller and smaller and smaller. So the feminist movement, the equal rights movement, a lot of those organizations over the years, they achieved what they want: equal rights for women, equal rights for minorities, whether it is like that, maybe gay marriage. But then they started trying to find other niches because a lot of these people started making too much money off of things. So I hope that that's something that doesn't happen on our side, where people really do believe in these values and they keep pushing them forward. And I also hope that as we hopefully gain more victories, we find a path forward instead of fighting with the left all the time, because there may get a point where we do have somewhat of a total victory and we are the ones in charge. And so we don't want to become authoritarian. We don't want to become stagnant. We have to keep looking forward, and we need to start loving things again. I think we've been angry for a long time and we've been fighting. So hopefully now we're turning the page on certain things. The fight is not going to end, but we need to start loving things again. It'll be great when we can start playing video games that we love and we're reviewing them, not because we're making fun of Sweet Baby Inc. or anything like that, but because something new is out there that we really love. Maybe it's, what Helldivers has done in some extent, what we've seen with Warhammer and other franchises. We see this revitalization, and we can do the things we love again because we actually love and enjoy them, and we can critique them in a positive way, not because they're woke, not because they have subliminal messaging, but because it's art that we can appreciate. And it'll be great to see a lot of that again. And I think you'll also be happy to see a lot of people kind of go from, all of us just being angry all the time at some of these things and constantly fighting and being like, hey, you know what? We're fans. We're patriots. We love our franchises. We love our country. And that's what keeps us going and waking up every day. And, but again, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We can't let that go. So that's just how it is. I can say that I will say this. I won't go into details of certain things that happen. I can tell you that everything that has happened, that has transpired, were not my decisions, and I'll leave it at that. That's pretty much where it goes, and I'll be ambiguous about that on purpose. But nobody really talks to me. Certain people don't talk to me anymore, and they have their reasons. And a lot of those reasons were not my decisions. So that's as far as I'll go, and I'm sure that will create some sort of intrigue as it is. But I wish everybody. I do wish everybody the best. Anybody that I've ever worked with or anything like that. I do have some great friends out there that I appreciate, that I still try to do stuff with. In some ways, I don't have time to interact with as many people as I used to. But in other ways, people move on and they make certain decisions, and ultimately you've got to respect them. And I think that in my own journey, especially as I've made a journey in becoming a Christian, you always forgive and you always have grace. And I think that it's important to, wish that upon everybody, that you don't hold malice in your heart or anything like that. So I don't have any ill will towards, anyone. And I think this is a lesson too for how we deal with the left going forward. I think that, as we make this transition, I think that we do have to have, I think we need to have grace for people that may have voted for Kamala. There are a lot of people there are some people that are legitimately crazy and they did want terrible things to happen to us, right? There are people that wanted you to get fired from your job if you didn't take the jab. There are a lot of people that have wished ill will and harm to you. It's going to be very difficult to forgive people like that. I think that the people on top, there has to be some sort of reckoning. Trump is not going to throw people in prison the way that the left thinks. I think a lot of people may get away with things. I think by exposing the Epstein client list and the Diddy client list, that will destroy a lot of people, and that will be in itself a form of revenge. I think we do have to purge people out of government positions, so firing them and things like that. As far as individuals, like I said, voters and things like that, we really have to try to educate these people. I think a lot of them are going to wake up on their own as they see that we've really saved them from themselves. Let's be honest, because we believe in cutting taxes. We believe in individual rights. We believe in protecting children, and we believe in empowering families. Those are all positive things. So as more people wake up and start realizing that we're not the boogeymen that they've accused us to be, there will be a lot of self-correction, and we need to have some patience for some people. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you have been beaten down and ostracized. Maybe you've had relationships destroyed with, whether it's, significant others or friends or family. Those wounds are going to be difficult to heal. It's up to you how you do those things. And it's up to the other person, right? Sometimes you can show grace, and a lot of times forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for the other person. So you do that to kind of empty your heart and to move on for yourself so that you don't have this negativity brewing in you and you can move forward. It doesn't mean that you interact with these people ever again or you're their friends ever again, but it takes a weight off of your heart so you can move forward. But other people, they are going to deserve some sort of punishment. So again, I think we do have to expose the media. I wish that a lot of these corporations would fire a lot of these anchors that have lied about things. I do think that Trump, in the capacity that he can, needs to probably eliminate a lot of the licenses that these large media companies have. I think that CBS, ABC, and NBC shouldn't be allowed to use the airwaves for free. That's a privilege that they've been given. It's a privilege that they don't deserve. And I think that now their punishment needs to be that they need to spend the millions of dollars that other broadcasting agencies have to spend in order to use those airwaves. I think we need to, auction off their spectrum, and they need to play by the same rules that everyone else does when it comes to that regard. No special treatment for that. And I think we're already seeing some of that correction. Jeff Bezos seems like he got the memo. We'll see how long that lasts with not letting his newspapers endorse candidates and wanting to hire more right-wing commentators as well. So we'll start seeing that. I think as ad revenue for the media starts imploding, a lot of those companies themselves may also start firing the Rachel Maddows of the world, the Joy Reids of the world, and their like. So I think I think those are things that we need to do. And again, it's not that it's true. Turning the other cheek is often difficult, so you can't be naive about things, but you got to choose who to fight and how you fight them, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. I talked about the mental health crisis that we're going to deal with now with a lot of these left-wing crazies that are, going ballistic on TikTok, women cutting off their hair, people screaming into the heavens, people with the racist comments against Latinos and black men. There's a lot of hate out there. Again, I don't know what we do with people like this. We shame them. That's pretty much what we can do. We shame them. If people are crazy and they become that way, they're going to lose jobs. They're going to be ostracized. I think TikTok is a major threat to us. TikTok's got to be dismantled and destroyed, or at least bought by an American company, because it's clearly a psychological warfare apparatus used by the Chinese to incentivize the worst behavior in American youth. That is extremely obvious. That is why so many people do so many stupid things in such a short period of time. It's because TikTok promotes bad behavior. They have a crap ton of bots that incentivize that, and that's warping the minds of a lot of people and causing them to go insane. And I think that's influenced a lot of the media as well, because they've used that as a tool. That's what gives the AOCs and people like that empowerment. I think this is where declassifying a lot of things will also help. I think people need to become more educated, and we need to expose what the stocks that politicians own, and so that you can see the impropriety that we have, how the military industrial complex pays them off, how they become consultants. We need to eliminate lobbying, all of those things. So there are a lot of things that we can do to take away these people's power. And obviously, as you declassify and expose things, if people actually did illegal things, and we prosecute them, and we have a leg to stand on. It's not going to be witch hunts or lawfare the way that the left used it. It's going to be true justice, because we're going to be able to prove that they did illegal things. I do think that we should be allowed, with public figures, it's very difficult to sue the media. But again, it's going to go down to licensing and punishing them in that regard, and taking away their special privileges and punishing them as viewers, and even boycotting products. That's what we're going to have to do. So, a popular tactic of a lot of these groups and a lot of the left is that they will call and harass corporations that advertise on like channels like Fox News or The Blaze. I think that we have to do similar things to the left. So we have to marginalize CNN, MSNBC, and CBS for lying by complaining to their sponsors. And because of the results of the election, a lot of major corporations are probably going to eliminate DEI. They see that that is an extinct cause that is just going to destroy them. So there are a lot of things that may start self-correcting, and nature, life will find a way, as they say. So I think those are some things that we're going to start seeing changes without even needing to do very much. But we now that we're out of the shadows, many of us as Trump supporters, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that were secret Trump supporters that were afraid to publicly admit that they supported him and other conservative figures, or even individuals that were streamers or in the entertainment industry that were, more freedom-minded. We're not going to be quiet anymore. And so we do need to use some of the tactics that they use that were very effective to start boycotting corporations, holding them accountable, and we need to use our wallets to do it. And then again, as Trump auditing the government, you can forgive, but you also there needs to be retribution. So we can't allow Democrats into leadership positions. We can't do that. Not at all. We need to expose them at every turn. So you have to declassify things and expose what they did, what they lied about. You may need to have your own special counsel to investigate certain things that they may have done. You'll have to look into the impeachment stuff. You'll have to investigate, I think, why so many intelligence members of the intelligence community lied about a lot of the things that they pushed on Donald Trump. So as that goes along, you're going to start finding the truth. And again, it goes back to declassification and exposure. The roaches always run away when the lights turn on, and then that will give you the opportunity to really see things. And I think that's their biggest fear. So you don't have to threaten them with throwing them in prison. It may get to that point if we find out they've done illegal stuff, which many of them probably have. So I think that's really where we have to go. How's it going, Novella Princess? You know, we will see a lot of that. And again, we just have to pay attention. We, as individuals, really need to pay attention, because that is how they were able to, you know, almost destroy the United States. We need to have much more civic engagement. We have a lot of bread and circuses, so to speak. That was how the Roman Empire fell. The elites distracted the people. First of all, the elites became immoral. They became immoral and decadent, and so they stopped caring about the people. They have no honor in what they do, so we need to encourage honor and civility. Once again, we need to hold ourselves at a high standard and hold others at that standard as well, and know that we won't tolerate shenanigans and bullshit. We won't tolerate laziness. We won't tolerate dishonesty or anything like that. So as we run businesses, we have to do so with integrity and honor, and hold people accountable to what they do and to doing a job, and show them that there are consequences to mediocrity. We need to have a new media now that is a check against the government, that exposes them in every direction so that they can be held accountable. You know, so, and we have to engage in civics now. We have to join those school boards. We have to run for office. You know, join the HOA, whatever it is. Be the watchdogs. Pay attention to the votes that are going on in Congress. Call your congressmen and women, your senators, your politicians. Complain to corporations if they do things you don't like. You know, a lot of times, and let people know when they do a good job too, right? Sometimes there's too much negativity, and you can see this in the workplace. People only get feedback when they do something wrong, but they never get rewarded or a pat on the back when they do something good. So yes, should people just do things because they're the right thing? Yes, they should. But because we've lived in an era with such little common sense and so much negativity and corruption, we do have to reward, or at least acknowledge, people that do the right thing and that do a good job, you know, and then that slowly starts becoming the standard and expectation once again, because common sense is not so common as we've seen throughout the years. So these are all the things that we need to do in order to improve our station and to make this country great again. That really is all there is to it. It's going to start with us. You know, we have President Trump. We have a great coalition team here. But if we want to maintain this, it's just like Benjamin Franklin said. What kind of country, what kind of government have you given us? A republic, if you can keep it. So it's up to us. We have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to hold our leadership accountable. And that means that we have to sacrifice. Without sacrifice, there's no victory. So we got to do some things that we're not going to like. And that means showing up, studying a little bit more about our own history, about what's going on, what laws are being passed, paying attention to that stuff. It's going to mean less time for things that we enjoy doing, but we have to pay attention to it. That's how we've been able to expose all these things, right? Whether it's in the entertainment industry or within our government. It was when we started paying attention. So yes, you have to be political. You have to be. You have no choice. It doesn't mean that you're going to become a political junkie like me or anything like that, but you have to have knowledge and an awareness of what is going on in your world so that you can react to it and make proper decisions, and to prevent yourself from being fleeced and screwed over. So, and to make sure that bad actors don't get into positions of power. So really, personal responsibility is where it's at, and that's what we've got to do. So I'm already past the 2-hour mark here. I think this has actually been really good. I think there's so many things that we can talk about. There's so many things that we're going to be able to talk about in the weeks to come. You know, we've got a lot of crazy left-wing meltdowns right here. Like, I don't know what we do with people like this.
I'm sorry.
I really don't.
No. Why?
voted.
I don't know what we do with people like this. I think it's interesting here. You can see states without voter that don't require photo ID or non-photo IDs, and you can kind of see how that aligns with the map of victory that we see here for Trump. So pretty interesting to see that illustrated. So again, voter ID, we definitely need to have that. There's no choice in the matter. I think that goes without saying. Let's see here. What else have we got here? We had some good stuff here we didn't even talk about that strategy in the campaign of how, Trump, well, we talked a little bit about the Bro podcast, the importance of Joe Rogan and to going to different sources in the media. That's where people get their news right. And I think this is where, my generation, as bad as millennials can be, I think millennials have trended conservative and even Gen Z. It's because we're tired of the 30-second to 2-minute segments on news stations where it's just a bunch of talking heads arguing at each other, and they can manipulate that very easily and shape a narrative. Whereas if you have Donald Trump sit for 3 hours with Joe Rogan and have a sincere conversation, it's very difficult to bullshit that, pardon my French. That's why Kamala Harris wouldn't do it, because she knew and her team knew that she was not capable of surviving in that type of environment. So they needed to curate her image and to, and to mold her the way that they wanted her to be portrayed. So I think new media, long form shows, an hour, 2 hours or more are really the future. Sean Ryan is another fantastic podcaster who is a rising star. He's up there with Rogan. Dan Bongino has been killing it. We all watch a ton of shows, whether it's Friday Night Tights or anything else like that go on for hours. And they really allow you to see people's opinions, because it's very difficult to fake when you're going for hours and hours and hours unscripted. That's why I just kind of go with the flow. It's not just because I have ADD, which I do. And I'm doing this solo. So sometimes I get, off my train of thought, but it really allows for a genuine, heartfelt conversation with your audience, or with, a guest, or within a panel, that you really get to understand people and where they're coming from. And it's very difficult to fake, especially if you're doing it every single week or multiple times a week. Some people are crazy and they can totally fake a persona and do all that, but most people can't. Rachel Maddow, I think she speaks for herself.
As to what Americans want to do along those lines. It also gives us a really big to-do list as Americans. If you are an American citizen who does not want to ashcan the American system of government, who doesn't want a strongman authoritarian system where the whole government is one guy and everything else just exists to serve him, if that is not the kind of country that you want, then yesterday's election means you have more to do for your country than you have ever done.
It's amazing the audacity that they have after that sort of mandate, and how many of the American people across all demographics rejected their narrative. So they're going to have to do some soul searching. And like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do here. Trump already talking about the transgender issue being thrown out.
Child abuse, very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures, and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.
That's huge. That's huge. That is huge stuff. And look, we can't forget, these types of votes. I agree. So we do have to have grace, but we also can't forget that there was a huge portion of the Democrat Party that wanted you to use your likelihood just because you wouldn't get the jab. That's crazy. So this is something that we're going to have to deal with. There is an authoritarian streak on the left. I think the best way, and there goes the cat, the best way that we do this is by basically we've saved them from themselves, right? We're going to show them that we're not authoritarians, that we are for freedom and personal rights, but we are for personal responsibility as well. So yeah, some things are going to get tougher because they're going to be held accountable and they're actually going to have to work for it. But other things, we've literally saved them from themselves because they don't even understand what it is that they were asking for. And you can see with the reactions that they're having that so many of them were brainwashed and lied to by the media. So there's going to be a recovery period. When you've been poisoned, that's literally what has happened. Their minds have been poisoned. They're not going to know what the heck is going on. They are in a state of disillusionment. So some people will not be able to be saved. That's just the way it is. Some people won't want to be saved. That's another sad part of this. But we will have to still deal with them, and it will have to be through results. So we have to show them that our beliefs and the way that we're doing things is superior to what they could have done, and that even they themselves will benefit from it. So that's just something that we'll have to check out. So we got Kash Patel. Kash Patel is already talking about the Epstein client list. He was here with Benny Johnson. So I'm kind of going through a lightning round here of some of the things that we were talking about. He said that
in the recipe on how to do it, we can keep the hood on the engine, but we can show the American people how they violated our rights. And
there we go.
To me, what you said is the most important: restoring trust.
Yes.
In our agencies and departments. That the way to do that is not to get a piñata and just punch them mercilessly and hoping for some bubble gum to pop out. The way to do that is to literally give the American people the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's what they feared about Donald Trump. Amen. He's going to come in there and maybe give him the Epstein list and maybe give him the P. Diddy list. He's going to come up there and maybe do all these things, and they are terrified.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the reason why Jimmy Kimmel was crying last night on his program. But also, I believe that this is something that the American public desperately want. And most importantly, this is how you restore honor and how you restore trust. Now, many may not know, some will, that you are personally responsible for the research on the Russiagate collusion. Everything we know about Russiagate, and we know maybe like less than half of what really happened with Russiagate, Kash Patel is the one who found it out with Devin Nunes. So, Kash, you have an excellent pedigree in rooting out the truth. Will we get the full Diddy list? Will we get Epstein? Will we get JFK? Will we get the rest of what happened with Russia collusion?
That's what I want. That's what I want as me as an American citizen. That's what I want in terms of achieving that restoration of respect for government in D.C. that's been gone for like 50, 60 years, right? I had said on the campaign trail when I was on the Team Trump bus tour or surrogate somewhere, I said, America has a chance to retire the dynastic families that have rained down corruption in Washington, D.C. on November 5th. You could have retired the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, and the Obamas. And you know what, Benny? For the first time, I get to say they did. And part of that mandate that they delivered to Donald Trump is simply they want the truth.
Yes.
And I don't know why it has been, well, I do know why, but I believe and hope President Trump is going to go in there and just be a vehicle, a conveyor belt for the truth and just put it out nonstop. Yes. Agriculture department, education, labor, all of it. everywhere. And Congress is going to play such a critical role in these oversight investigations. Just think of what you can accomplish if you have a director or a secretary who actually works with the Republican chairman or chairwoman on oversight. It's incredible.
And then The View just going crazy.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep.
So
they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock,
misogyny.
knock. Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
See, this is, they're going to have to learn here. They're going to have to learn. If not, they will literally get destroyed. Now, on some side news over here, I don't know what this is all about, but apparently 40 rhesus monkeys escaped from a biological research lab in South Carolina. So I'm leaving you here with the story that you need to pay attention to, because is this outbreak playing before our eyes? Is this intentional? Is there going to be some crazy disease that's escaped here with these monkeys running rampant across the South? I don't know. It's something to pay attention to, right? So just be careful out there. Oh man, and then we've got more left-wing meltdowns. I mean, this is just crazy stuff, right? Like we can. And we've got Eric. We'll watch this one here. Whoa.
What? Because we love Donald Trump.
We saw this one already.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you.
Okay.
I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done.
Why you gotta be done with my sister?
I love Terrence.
Oh. No, don't cry. It's gonna be okay. Trump is your daddy. It's gonna be okay. No, it's real. But it's real.
All I can say is how fucking dare you? How dare you put this man into office for another 4 years, knowing damn well what it means for our country.
Okay, Miss Sassy, calm down.
Oh man, I know I'm laughing, and I'm sure a lot of you have laughed at a lot of these, but this is what we're gonna have to deal with, right? We got to deal with crazy people.
Oh yeah, sisters.
Stuff.
And I'm gonna put it to you like this: if I see you with a white man, it's up. I don't care. I don't want to hear that spicy white shit no more. This shit is not a joke no more. I don't care what the fuck Shira Savin said.
Oh my gosh.
God, you know what? Get with a man of your race. Get with an old white man, bitch. I wish you would. Go ahead and do it. Do it. I want to see. Bitch, you gonna get that treatment, bitch. I'm gonna give you that look just how I get a black man with a white girl in his arm. Bitch, you got a white. Oh,
this is the craziness that we're seeing.
Bitch is up for you. I'm not playing with y'all. I'm back on my racism shit. I'm back on it. Oh my God, it's 2020 all over again. I just the racism just came off of me. Now it's back on, bitch. I'm locked in. Bitch, I'm not playing with y'all. Like, I'm not playing with y'all. Y'all my sisters and all that. But all that mixed shit, I'm not doing it. I don't give a fuck. Hispanics too, bitch. I don't want to see no Black-skinned babies. I don't give a fuck about her hair. I do not give a fuck about your kid's hair. I don't care. I do not care, bitch. It's blacks only, bitch. From now on, don't play. Do not play. Do not play. And it's specific blacks. I'm actually angry. Oh my God, calm down, Najee. Calm down. I'm actually angry, bitch. I promise you, I'm on your ass. I'm on your ass if I see you with a white man, bitch. You bitches is not off the hook no more. Fuck.
See, this is what the media has done here. So this is something that we will have to deal with. How much of it is performative? I'm sure there is stuff that's BS out there, but this is something that long term, we're gonna have to deal with. There's a lot of people that have been brainwashed. There's a lot of people with animosity and hate for no reason, and unfortunately, that's something that we're going to have to live with, and that's something that they took, pretty much took away from us these last few years, and it's going to take a lot of work to fix these things. So I've gone nearly 2.5 hours here. I just kind of riffed it. Hopefully you all have enjoyed the show. There's some, look at that. It looks like the Florida Secretary of State has offered to help Arizona switch to Florida's election system. So Florida, a state with nearly 23 million people, of which I live in, was able to count all their votes by like 11 o'clock. And we got all the results. Arizona is still at like 70-something%, which is preposterous. There's no excuse for that. There are a lot of states that have gone way too long as well. So we got to have voter ID. We got to change these systems because we were able to call this election on one night. Remember how they tried to perpetuate all this BS? It was going to take days and all this stuff. Nope. It never should. It never should. This is the United States of America, the most powerful and wealthy a nation in the history of this planet. And there is no excuse for things that even third world countries have no trouble doing. So thank you again, everybody. I will be back next week, probably on Wednesday at my usual time, or at this time, probably 6 or 6:30 to 8:30. I'll let you know. We will be back tomorrow for some Fortnite. I will be here with the old men, the old man Pistolero, Doc, and my brother, Commander N. I believe you can catch Commander N right now or at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, sorry, on Geeks and Gamers Tabletop for some cool tabletop action there. So go ahead and share him some love. Tell him that you came from Rolo's Rants and that you're a fan. Commander is awesome. He does some other things as well. And then stop by tomorrow to watch the shenanigans as Commander and I try to carry the older generations in Fortnite. I have not played the new map. I didn't play last week because I did not want to play the Snoop Dogg and Eminem events, and I wanted to just chill a little bit before the election. So I made up for it tonight. I appreciate all of you. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Sorry if I didn't get a chance to say hello. I just kind of went for it tonight. But I do want to thank everyone that super chatted once again. Greg the Goblin for the 20. Kathy Bennett for the 20 as well. Mr. Zeeb for the 5 and Schick for the $2. And thanks all of you watching Rumble. I appreciate you guys as well. We had more than 10 people watching on Rumble. We got to pump those numbers up as well. And we had about, let's see, how many did we have watching on X? We've got 14 watching on X. Thank you so much. Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe. Let everyone know that I'm here and that we're going to keep this going. We are just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. They will not stop, and neither will we. We're going to take this to the moon, the stars, and beyond. And now we are no longer burdened by what has been. And that's the best thing of all. So God bless all of you. God bless America. And have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, everybody.
We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.